So, and how is the situation now? There has been very nice progress in gold production, and a growth of 44% is predicted this year. What has changed?
Quite a few things have changed. Firstly, the politics. The Government of National Unity gave the opposition party the Department of Finance. And because they have had the Department of Finance, which is a department that the ruling party was really abusing before, now, of course, all eyes were on the Department of Finance. So the Department of Finance could no longer crook the books, for want of a better word. So suddenly, finances are balancing. Secondly, we dollarized our currency. We took on the US dollar as a currency, although they might still take on the rand at some stage, but it's basically the US dollar. Since around February 2008, they scrapped the regime they had where gold producers were paid uneconomic prices. We're currently looking at a world-less 5% price if you're selling to the government, but you can now export direct your gold, provided you follow certain legal channels. Our electricity has improved. The main ones are that our income has improved. We're not being robbed anymore like we were.
What about availability of capital for growth? Is that available in Zimbabwe?
No. No. You see, in February 2008, everybody woke up one morning and there was the splendid news. You may now trade in US dollars. What they didn't tell you was that the Zimbabwe dollar was no longer good enough. So you instantly lost your cash flow that day. Even if you only had a Zimbabwean dollar cash flow, you still had a cash flow. And all of us woke up that day and our Zimbabwean dollar bank accounts had become null and void, emptied, because it was a useless currency. So people had to roll over into a US dollar without a loan. And I believe much of the industry is only just coming right. You talk of a 44% increase in productivity. I agree with that, but it's been 3 years. So companies have been producing at a profit and reinvesting their profit. There's been no loans initially because I believe loan houses were a little bit concerned about political instability and the viability of the return of that loan. But loans are coming in. The Industrial Development Corporation, the IDC, the African Bank, loans are coming in to the bigger corporates. It's not enough though. There's not enough. There is no capital loans yet.
What about the presence of investors?
You know, investors, I think to invest in Africa, you need to be reasonably brave, irregardless of where you invest. Investors in Zimbabwe, well, they've been plenty, but they haven't invested because of a fear of the similar takeover of mines the way it was done on the farms. And this 51% indigenization law, which is not even, it's not a law.
No.
It never was a law. It was fast-tracked through Parliament while they made the Speaker of Parliament step aside for some unknown reason and quickly brought in a ruling party Speaker of Parliament acting and fast-tracked this thing through. But it is an illegal. They can't enforce it at all. Now, but that did scare away people. Those who stayed, however, and saw through that are the lucky ones today. But you know, even an investor is always going to come in and there's going to be an agreement on equity, etc., between an investor and a project owner and managerial equity and so on. But let's be frank, the way commodity prices have gone, especially in the last 18 months, gold, tantalite, copper, platinum, I think there's enough fat for everybody in those price increases.
Another, I want to ask a little bit about uh, the decline in gold production. Could that happen again?
Very, very unlikely. Zimbabwe will never go back to what it was. Zimbabwe can't go back to that era where you have a dictatorship that takes complete control. I think the Arab awakening has shown the rest of the world Africa is on a reform process. The internet and technology has often been ridiculed by this very president because he has actually said it messes up his politics. The fact is, the internet is so much faster now. When atrocities are happening, it's being shown within seconds to the outside world. What I'm trying to say is Africa will not go back to its dictatorships. And its dictatorships that have destroyed countries, and its dictatorships that have overtaken progress, totally squashed it, and disallowed it from going forward unless the dictator was benefiting. It's not going to happen anymore in Africa. You're in a situation now, I stand to complete correction, but you're in a situation currently where an African country like South Africa is enforcing what political change will occur here. And it's the rest of the world saying to South Africa, are you also going to be a dictatorship? If you aren't, why aren't you sorting out Zimbabwe? And it is actually happening. So it's unlikely, highly unlikely. You see also, most politicians come of age around the age of 50. Now, it's been 30 years since independence. And this government did so much educating that 20-year-olds 30 years ago are now 50. But they're a very advanced 50-year-old bunch. They're not old reformists like their parents were, who were liberalists and people who looked after taking over a country. These young 50-year-olds are modern, they're Democrats. So it's unlikely that you're going to get a society again in this continent where dictatorships destroy, and for example, destroy your gold output.